Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. I'm your host, Jefferson K Rogers. In the studio with me, I got my co-host, Jeffrey Fieldstead, and special guest, one of the top leaders here at JKR Windows, Mr. Cory Gilbert. Today we're going to be discussing some fun topics. How do you break down $1 million annual income year? The $1 million blueprint. And we got a guy right now that's on track for $1 million this year after a very short period of time with JKR Windows. And stoked to talk about what that looks like in the future, leadership, developing people, sales. And why don't we start a little bit with your background, Cory?
Oh, man, where do I start? Number one, appreciate you guys for putting me on this little podcast, this big podcast, right?
You bet, man.
Opportunity. I started in sales, man, back in 2005. It was go get on the farm for $5 an hour. Or I told my dad, I said, hey, I'm going to go to Oakland, California and try this home security gig, right? And ended up going out. I actually had to borrow money from my parents for the first week, and then after that it was over.
What year was that?
That was 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a while. But, one of the recipes that really helped me actually be successful to really kick off this journey has been I had the opportunity to actually get and mirror an image, like mirror the guy that was doing about $600,000, $700,000 at that time a year. He was the top home security guy. And so literally I had an opportunity. I was 30 days in my office because his cousin actually showed up. And before that, I got this is how old school it was. It was a DVD, right? We know what DVDs
It wasn't
are
that
now.
long ago, bro. Come on.
For us, right? Pulled a DVD, and it had him on it, and didn't know the guy. His name was Spencer Woolston. And literally just watched him, imitated him, wore the same pants that he wore, the same shirt he wore. I combed my hair the same way he did. And went out to the cold Idaho Falls and in the snow, and I just went to my first store, and I was in there for 3 hours closing down this sale that I had no clue what I was doing.
For an alarm?
For an alarm. Yeah.
Alarm system in
3
Idaho
hours.
Falls?
Idaho Falls, man, because we were just prepping to get the summer sales model going, and
I guess, yeah.
we're going to go to Oakland. And anyway, so that moment of me and determination of actually trying to figure out this on my own and getting uncomfortable really actually helped propel me, right? Because then when I went out there, I was the only guy besides this Spencer's cousin that had the opportunity, because I actually chose to get in the car with him I think it was actually 45 days, just constantly. This guy, he went 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. It was crazy. And he's like, he threw you out there, and you had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in one pocket, and then you had your water bottle in the other. You go hide it in a bush, and then I maybe knocked with him 3 times. But it was literally the grind of actually just going out with him and picking his brain in the car, right? And so I just pick his brain. And I tell you all this because I think this was what propelled me into a successful pattern, And so
Before you went there, what were you doing? You said you were almost
I was moving.
talked into going get paid $5 an hour at the farm.
Yeah, so I was at college, and I was moving furniture for a little bit at a job, breaking my back, but it wasn't too bad when you're 20.
Right.
But that was just paying, pennies. And then for the summer, I was actually going to take the opportunity to just go back on the farm. They did onions, mint, potatoes, all sorts
Who's
of
they,
stuff.
your family?
But you
Yeah,
grew up
family.
working on the farm.
But I grew up on the farm, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I did hay baling and all sorts of stuff on the tractor, and so that was my background, and from there I was just like, you know what, I want to know if I was actually going to get into medical stuff and become a doctor, and that path.
The traditional path.
Yeah. And then I just got the opportunity to try this thing out with sales, and said, okay, well, let me see if I'm good at talking to people, right? And so, and I actually went with the path of trying to get into medical device sales. That's why I started home security sales, because I want to see if I was good at selling. And then I quickly, became one of the top office guys. I was like, I think there's one guy that beat me that year because he extended out, and we were going for a snowmobile, and he beat me actually by he killed it right at the end. We were like neck and neck, and then he just blew me out of the water. But So I ended up being number 2 in that, that year. It was great. It was fun. But that was kind of my experience. And I think from there, it just propelled me in. Like, I just leveled up every time. It's just like every time I went into a summer, it was just like, it's got to be better, right?
Wow. So how many years did you do summer sales for?
Gosh, it was probably like 6 or 7 years.
Okay, so summer sales 6 or 7 years, and then you were going to college during that time, or what?
And I was going to college. Then I got my MBA through that process as well. So I got my bachelor's MBA. It came down to the end of it. I was like, I got to get a real job, right? So I was making I think at the time it was like $200,000 a year in 3 months.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I still told myself I still need a real job.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Was it you telling yourself that, or was everybody else telling you that?
I think it was everybody, and it was myself included. Because our last summer we ended up doing a Vivint run, and it was like 3 states in 3 months. It was crazy. I mean, we were living in hotels and conference rooms with air mattresses, and living out of our car. We had a U-Haul trailer that held all the home security stuff, home automation stuff, and they were just driving that around as we went to Williston and Minot and all these crazy, oil towns.
Makes for some great stories, though.
Oh, I could tell you a lot of stories.
That's awesome
stuff. But anyway, yeah, so I need to get a real job, right? That's kind of where it's like I told myself, and I took on a job, medical device sales, and it was a $60,000 salary, hoping that I could work my way up the ladder. And in 7 months, I drank the Kool-Aid, which was way too much. And I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I can't do this. I got to write my own paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So went out called up my buddy, and we partnered up on a home security company. And then, we went from there.
Awesome. So what led you to doing Windows?
It was interesting. I told, Brandon Neal, he's a neighbor of mine, and my past history, the biggest thing that I did was build a very large solar company, right? Mm-hmm. And we had thousands of employees. We had, it was a great success. We took it national. But then, it came like there's a lot of hardship with solar. And so then the company just didn't make it. We ran out of cash flow, and there was a lot of challenges with finance and banks and all sorts of stuff that just sucked out our cash. Yeah. And a lot of challenges right now in the solar industry right now. And so I, ended up moving here to St. George, Utah, because my dad he has Parkinson's disease. He's had it for 15 years. And I just made the leap without, the company was shutting down, and I just said, okay, I'm moving to St. George. I need to be near my dad. Mm-hmm. And then about a year and a half goes by, and I'm just doing this happy dance trying to figure out, wherever YouTube was taking me with opportunity.
Yeah. What are you going to do
with your life? And so went into some sales development, leadership stuff, and some opportunities on some nonprofits, but it just didn't yield money. And so anyway,
why they call it nonprofit. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So we, Brandon contacted me, and I went to another, I won't say the company, but I went to a company and just sat in there. The F-bombs are all over the place, meaning there just was a vibe in there that I didn't like. Yeah. So I walked out the door, and I told Brandon, I said, hey, if that vibe's there, I'm not interested, and I came here to JKR, and the leadership and the, meeting you, Jeff, and meeting you, Jefferson, and meeting Brandon, and it just got me hooked. Mm-hmm. And then I was with these youngsters again, these 20 to 25-year-olds that just need that kind of push in life. And I just, I started getting involved in the conversations. I'm like, oh, I'm liking this. This is actually a purpose for me again. Mm-hmm. So that got me motivated, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna give this a shot. And then about a month and a half into it, was doing my numbers and stuff. Finally sent a text to Brandon, said I'm all in. I said I'm all in. So, and that's where we are today. So
that's awesome, dude. I think I would love for you to talk a little bit about this environment that you got a taste of somewhere else, and you didn't love that environment, because everywhere has this is what culture is, right? You go to a different city, you go to a different country, mm-hmm. and there's different cultures, and they're built by the people that are in them, the things that they're focused on. And sometimes maybe those guys that you walked into that room didn't realize the things that they were saying, and their focus was turning off a guy like you, which mm-hmm. is important. And a lot of times people say, oh, well, it doesn't matter. That's not, But I think it does. I think it's the most important thing in business. And part of my notes right here, I just wrote down environment is everything, because your environment is going to attract a certain kind of person. And you're the kind of guy that people should want to attract. So what is it, you said F-bombs, but it's not like nobody around here has dropped an F-bomb before,
absolutely not,
right?
No.
So I would love to hear your perspective on what it actually is. What was the thing that turned you off from that environment? Again, it doesn't even matter where it was, but it was an environment, because it could have been church, or could have been a sporting event. It could have been anything, and say, hey, that's not my environment, right?
Yeah.
So what was it that you saw that you didn't love about that environment? And then what was it here? You said leadership, but I'd love for people to know, because I'm actually getting ready to do a call this week on how to create environment and how to create a winning culture. Because I think that out of all the skills you could learn in anything in life, in business, is how to create a winning environment, whether it's for your family, whether it's for business, whether it's in a church group, whatever it may be. If you can create a winning environment, you can create a great culture, then you can accomplish anything in life, right?
Yeah.
So maybe talk about those two differences.
Yeah. So, I've just kind of set aside some identity, and values and principles and mission and all sorts of stuff. And, one of my missions in life is inspired by example, and then bring abundance to the less fortunate and create generational value. Right. So those are my three things that really kind of speak to me. And so inspired by example to me is, just that environment. It wasn't just that. It was also, walking into it, you had, a guy in a kind of a, I don't know, gosh, man, like a $5,000 suit with his hair slicked back and stuff. And it was just, there was just a weird vibe that was going on in there. And it just wasn't me. And I've seen that before. And they were not aligned. Like, all the people in there were just not aligned. I could see it within 5 minutes, right? And everybody was in it for themselves. I could just totally see that. So I just immediately just said, this is not for me. I actually pulled my application, just went, thank you, and just walked out the door. I didn't really talk to anybody. But then when I came to JKR Windows, obviously you warm up your relationships. You get to know Jeff Fieldsteads and the Jefferson Rogers, and you get to know the people that we're doing work with. And I saw the alignment in the leadership maturity, because when I had my company and we were doing millions of dollars, you didn't have the maturity that is here at JKR Windows. And that's actually why I'm here, and that's why I'm excited, because we're going to grow, we're going to expand, and we're going to do it the right way. And we're not just going to do it because we're chasing the dollar, right? But there's also an alignment here that's just amazing, and it really it starts with the leadership at the top. We could never get our leadership aligned at our company to the level it needed to be for the size of the company it was. And you guys are at a level where we were back in 2016, and you guys are about to expand and grow. And you guys have already thought out 20 years. You guys are already thinking through this process and incorporating the financing and incorporating operations and sales and thinking through technology. Because as we grow and expand, it's easy to throw sales at things. We can always just throw sales. We can get these guys, we can get them all motivated, and they'll just throw it. And then if we're not prepared and not put together, this is going to just be a shit show. You know what I mean? It's going to be crazy, and we're going to, all of a sudden, those sales guys are going to be leeches to somewhere else. And I don't want to call them a leech. I'm just saying that that's just what happens, right? And I feel like JKR Windows is ready, and they're ready to expand and grow. And Jefferson, Jeff, you guys are 110% in, and I can see it, right? And I know your guys' backgrounds, and I know it's not for the money. You know what I mean? So we want to achieve greatness here. And that's what I'm excited.
It's a different energy when you're doing it for the right reasons.
Exactly.
And it's hard to pretend to do it for the right reasons.
Yes.
Because we all have the bullshit meter that's going off, and you feel like something's funny, and then now you're constantly looking for the answer to a question that you already know.
Exactly.
Well, I think this is perfect, because the question I asked you when you walked into that environment, they have an environment and a culture over there. We have an environment and a culture here, and I think it comes down to being authentic. Like, why are you really doing something? And are you being authentic, or are you just trying to chase a paycheck, or are you just trying to get something out of something? which I think a leech is actually a good example.
Yeah, sorry.
Because let's face it, there are a lot of people that are selfish.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like with my kids, one of the things I always talk about is, hey, if you can learn to be selfless and think about yourself less and think about others more, you actually become more fulfilled in life.
Exactly.
It's actually where you find purpose, is thinking about other people. What can you do to help the organization, the culture, pour more into? I've actually seen that's one of the things you've done a phenomenal job of, and I think why you're having so much success is because you came into an environment and you poured everything you had into it. Right? It wasn't, you weren't just taking from it, but you were pouring everything you had. You know, you talk about these young 20, 25-year-old kids that you're pouring into.
Right.
And I think that's the secret to creating a good environment. When people walk in, they can feel it. Like, oh, these guys genuinely want everybody in this room to win.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you make the decision to start saying, hey, I can make $1 million a year? Because here, as we talk about being authentic, that we're all in, it's not just about the money. At the same time, I think the amount of money you're making is a measuring stick of how well you're doing at all this other stuff, right? It's a byproduct is one of the things I always talk about. It's a byproduct of doing the right things up front. So I do think it's important, especially where you're running a sales org, to make a certain amount of money, because then it does show somebody saying, hey, if you do this, you'll get this. And I know, hey, it's nice to make $1 million. You're not doing it for the million. You're doing it for a far larger reason, right?
Yeah.
So what made you make the decision to say, hey, I'm going to go make $1 million this year?
You know, I think it comes down to what your why is and your vision is, right? And I harp on this all the time with the guys. And I just came from a meeting right now, and we spent 45 minutes going through the basics again of having a why and a vision mixed with a bunch of, you know, part of the formula. There's a lot of things to it to equate to success. But one of my whys is, you know, I had a reality check in life that I experienced something that not a lot of people have experienced before. And I saw it fail. Right. And
big
that was
highs
hard.
and big lows.
Yeah. We, it's hard to see 1,000 employees and families and all that kind of stuff. Just not, you know, there was another plan. That plan was, you know, we had a pretty big idea of what that plan was with our company, and it just went crashing and burning. And, you know, I think part of the journey of the monetary sense is, you know, I built a company and we went from $0 to $365 million in a year over a 10-year span. Was, you know, I didn't see any of that money. that was the crazy thing is as we built it, we put everything back into it. And that's the sacrifice that these owners make, that we just, you know, a lot of people don't have that perspective. And I have that perspective. And so essentially for me, it's like I get this opportunity that I can build a business within a business, and I can grow my business, but I can make money along the way. You know what I mean? I don't have to dump it back into something and then hope that some end result is going to happen. So that's one of my reasons why that this is exciting to me, because I finally get to be on that side of it. I can actually take this income in. The other part of it is I have this thing in my office at home, and it says weeks of my life, right? And it's just broken down in sections, and I put a permanent marker and I just mark each box that's a week of my life. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon, right? And I did it, and I put it in sections. I'm right in my career section, right? And I filled out that thing, and I'm about 60% through my career section, and then I'm going to go to retire, and then I'm going to go to this. Well, my plan is, man, if you went, you know, 3 years back, like I was set. I was going to be a multimillionaire. I was going to, we were selling the company. Actually, it was like 4 years ago before COVID hit. And, but I think this hardship from COVID till now and this cycle of things have really like just stretched me and grew of like, okay, you know, you got to build all over again. You got to do this all over again, you know. But now I'm looking at that weeks of my life and I'm like, you know, I'm 41. Like, oh my gosh, I got to build all over again. I thought my life was like, you know, sell the company and then I'm done. You know, I'm done, you know. And what I quickly realized, like, you know, you've gone to a point in your life that you had that cycle where you've sold, you know, part of what you built and you're, look what you're doing. You're active again. And I would have probably realized that I would have been bored out of my mind, you know.
There's no fulfillment and purpose in not chasing something or building something you're proud of.
I think my why has just gotten bigger. It's just I want to build an empire within a company, and Unfortunately, you have to get to send the message to people. You have to make a lot of money. Right? You have to make a lot of money. If you don't make a lot of money,
in this game, you do.
You do.
It's a whole lot different joining a team of winning people, making a lot of money, than somebody who just has a big vision, but there's not a whole lot of money being made.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It just feels different when you walk in and you can see your life trajectory being able to change, and the quality of life and the things that you can do with your family or your future family because there's money being made.
Yeah.
And it's just reality of the world that we live in.
Yeah. Well, I've always said everybody's story matters. It's worth hearing, everybody, right? It's one of my favorite things to do is go to Vegas and just people watch. It's like, man, what is their story, right? Yeah. Everybody's story is worth hearing. You just have to do something that attracts a large enough group of people to actually listen. And usually in the world we live in today, that requires getting financial success or financial results for people to say, oh, I should listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, money brings happiness. Let's just be honest. Like, there's a level of happiness that money brings in. When you don't have money, you are not happy. It trickles into the rest of your life, right? But there's a level of where your purpose is greater than money. And once you get to that level, like the Kobe Bryants and the Michael Jordans and stuff, like greatness wasn't because of money. It was because of their why. They wanted to be the best in the world, right?
The byproduct was they made the most money.
They made the most money, right? But they influenced a lot of people.
Yep, I agree. In fact, that was one of the things Jefferson and I talked about when we started working together. It was like I didn't have this desire to just do something for money. We had this. I was like, if that's the goal, is just to build something and sell it off in a couple of years, I don't know. That's just not what drives me. I realized, in a good way, like I feel like it was a good thing to learn to have sold my business and then have multiple years of going, all right, is this really what I want? Am I really providing the best example to my children by just being home every day and not having anything to chase? Like, yeah, I'm there for every little thing, but is that actually the best thing? And it gave me an opportunity to reflect on the things that matter in life and what am I showing to my kids. And it isn't just like, hey, make a bunch of money and retire and make a bunch of money and don't do anything anymore. There's no purpose in that. And so I think,
and I got to be honest, Jeff, I would prefer that than actually crashing down and then starting all over.
and that's
exactly.
And that's
that would have been
right?
some different lessons learned.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's incredibly valuable for you to have gone through that and for you to be here with your attitude and your mentality and for you to still be pouring into people. And I understand there's probably some trauma there, but I think you've handled it incredibly well.
Me too.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I think it's special to have people that have been through different experiences to see different perspectives that come together because it allows us to guide the company forward and make wise decisions, which we've talked about multiple times, right?
Yeah.
So I know it may not have been comfortable. It may not have been the most desired outcome.
I tell you, it's still uncomfortable, right? I'm still going through the fragments of that right now.
Yeah.
And that comes down to, distractions and you're always in life, you're going to have distractions.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be something in life. And for these listeners that are actually listening, like the why is so important. The vision is so important. And then you got to eliminate your distractions and you got to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. Because we all have them. If I sat down with one of these guys that we're training and teaching, I could list out my distractions and I'll beat them any day.
Yeah.
I'll beat them any day. Like they're just like, oh, okay, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But I want the other side, And so we are all facing something, right, in life. And so we just have to, navigate through it and we have to block out our days. We probably talk about that a little bit and set aside time and have productive time. Because
let's talk about that because I think that's probably the thing that most people can relate to, right? Where they have this desire, they have this why, they want to make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
I think most people, if they're honest with themselves listening to this, would say, yes. Do you want to make $1 million a year? Of course I want to.
Yeah.
Okay. Wanting to and willing to is two totally different things, right?
Yeah.
So assuming somebody says, yes, I want to, and yes, I'm willing to do what it takes, now they've got to start having some priorities.
Yeah.
And mapping it out. And I think that's one of the things that you're really good at yourself.
Yeah.
That I'm sure you weren't always good at.
I still, even this day, still don't feel like I'm good at it. But
from the outside looking in, you're better than most.
Yeah.
And what you're teaching these guys and the feedback that I get from them after sitting through one of your trainings and the epiphanies that they're having about wow, like if I want to go do this, this seems much more real now that I've just broken down the numbers and I reversed engineered it. Whatever their goals were, unless you've reverse engineered it and you have a plan, it doesn't seem all that real, and it's just more of a wish.
Right.
But once you start breaking it down and you can know exactly what you would like to do and then reverse engineer all the way back to how much you're going to have to do today to start working towards that, it starts to become real. And I've heard you, just little glimmers of you communicating that for your own personal goals.
Right.
And it's making an impact. So I know that this is possible because I've already seen it happen in Windows before. And with your goals, your influence, the experience that you bring to the table, how uniquely qualified you are to help these guys reach their goals, you help enough people get what they want, and just by default, you're going to get more than you could ever imagine.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and so, we talked about vision and why, right? Those are number one, because you're going to fall back when you go through your cycle of, I call the valley of despair. Because there's like a time and we all cycle, especially in sales, where there's ups and downs. And as long as we're going a little bit up every time, we're going to cycle through this. So it really comes down to that. You're going to fall back on your vision and your why. What the heck are you doing? Is it a Hawaii trip? Is it a Lamborghini? Is it this? Like, those things are just not going to be enough. And so you got to really fall back.
Not for long-term success.
Not for long-term. And it could be a good why. It could get you to a level, but it's not going to. I tell you, like, these greats out there, they did not go for a nice car. That wasn't their.
So you know what? It is a stepping stone because I've been there too. And for me to find out what fired me up and gave me energy and kept me coming back for more, I had to start with something. And for me, I posted a picture on my vision board. It was an F-350.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be it. And then I bought an F-350 and I was like, it's just like another truck.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah. What now?
But it got you there.
It got me there.
So, and that's important
it's
for these guys. Like I always say, one guy, he sat down with me and he said, he's like, Cory, I want to be at your level. I want to be at your level. I'm like, okay, that's cool. What's your why? He's like, I don't know. He's just a single dude. He's like, a Hawaii trip. I'm on a Hawaii trip. Okay, well, let's reverse engineer that. Okay, that's $3,000 for a single dude to probably go to Hawaii.
I don't know where you're staying in Hawaii, bro. How'd you find
single guy, right? Single guy. He can live on the beach.
$3,000. He's just going for 24 hours.
Yeah. But essentially, we just reverse engineered it. But I just told him, I said, look, the difference is mindset. I said, you're literally, and I'm going to be kind and not nice to you right now. That's what I told him. I said, I'm going to be kind, not nice. You're here in your mindset. I'm here. Okay. And there's people that are above me. Definitely above me. And I'm just saying the reason why is because your why is you want to get to $5,000 this month, and then in 3 months you want to get to Hawaii, but that might motivate you there. But if you want to do what I'm doing, you can't be there, right? You just can't be there. And so, because that Hawaii trip's going to come and go, and then you're going to be like, you're going to dip again because you just don't have a big enough why of what you're doing. And so everybody's got a mindset of levels of where they're at. Right.
Yeah, I think a good book on this is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, talking about financial thermostat and what really drives people. So if someone's listening to this and they want to learn about that, I think it's a good book they can read.
It's a great way to think about it, though.
Yeah.
Because really, if you want to put things into perspective for somebody that truly has the desire to take it to the next level, sometimes you just got to put things into perspective, and it's not very nice.
Yeah.
Like, listen, you're here because of your previous experiences. This is the way that you think. Nothing you can do about it. Everything you've done has led you to this point.
Yeah.
But if you want to get to here, you cannot think like this anymore.
Yes.
Like, going to Hawaii is not going to help you get a change of trajectory to here because you're going to have to go through stuff, the challenges, the obstacles, the late nights, and that most people just aren't willing to go through to get here.
Yeah.
Yep. And so they always turn the thermostat back down. And like, I'm just not sure if I want to pay that price.
Yep. And I want to give that a perfect example. I was watching a documentary of Kobe Bryant, and one of the coaches, this is after Kobe died, on the helicopter crash, but essentially they were doing a documentary on him, and the coach tells a story about how he actually goes in to the locker room, and they're all kind of laughing and making fun of Kobe Bryant. So his teammates are, right? And he's like, what's this all about? He's just like, dude, that guy over there, number one, Kobe was not the nicest guy sometimes, but he definitely was a leader. But he was over there. He was actually taking shots at the time. He was in the gym while they were in the locker room. And they were like, well, this guy wants to be like Michael Jordan. He wants to be Michael Jordan. And the coach just looks at the situation, and he just sits back and he just says, you guys are effing idiots. That's what he said. He's just like, obviously, and they just were taken back, and they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, you mean this guy over here that's taking shots right now, practicing, and you guys are sitting here in the locker room, and he wants to be like Michael Jordan. Are you guys crazy? Are you guys nuts? Why aren't you guys doing the freaking same thing? Mm-hmm. And it kind of spoke to me. I was just like that, there's people that are willing to do different levels of greatness, right? And you just got to measure what is your level of greatness, and it comes back to your why and your vision. Like, what is your why?
You know what I think is important as you say that? It doesn't matter if it's in sales. It doesn't matter what it is. But
Correct.
A lot of times the price that is paid to become successful is one where nobody's watching. Because you're talking about this in a documentary after he died.
Yeah.
And I know people talked about that while he was still alive, but a lot of it was after he had achieved greatness. En route to his, mystique that everybody looked at him as, he was doing those things, and nobody was acknowledging that.
No.
And so a lot of the times, in sales, it's getting the repetitions in, getting the rejection, late nights, as you were talking about, early mornings, being the first one to the office every day, staying the last one there, doing the most appointments, getting the most experience, leading the most people, being willing to fail, and having nobody acknowledge that up front is really the price that's paid for success.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think the price that they pay for success is like, oh, I'm struggling. I'm like, no. Like struggling financially while en route to success in sales is like starving in a grocery store. You should make money, right? You're supposed to make money. There's a product to sell. Yeah. The price you're paying is those early mornings, late nights, getting the repetitions in when nobody's paying attention and you're not being acknowledged for it. And then eventually one day it happens and people go, what did you do, dude? You became number one. What do I got to do to do that?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And that's what they say about the greats out there is like they were already great before because they actually did all of the work before. Mm-hmm. It's just they're recognized for that greatness at that moment when it happens.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm watching you do that. It's interesting. So we got some notes down here, like the importance of time management, the power of execution, stuff that we're watching you do.
Yeah.
Right. Where you're the first guy here. You're here every day. Right.
Yeah.
And it's rare that you're not here. And the only reason you're not here is usually because you're running appointments or doing something else. But I also know you have a great family life, and there's all these other things that you're pouring into. You've got kids. Mm-hmm. And so there are some people that have arguably a less strenuous schedule in life. They have less kids. They've got less responsibilities. Yeah. But you're still accomplishing more. So what do you think it is that separates you? I know it's thinking. But what are you doing to be able to manage leading from the front, closing sales, teaching other people, but in addition to having a great marriage, great kids, you're on track to make $1 million this year. Mm. So how do you make it all work? What is that process?
Yeah, so number one, I would just actually suggest everybody read this book, right? Obviously, everybody's got a book. Mm-hmm. So this is 12-week year, how to get, things done in 12 weeks instead of 12 months. I'm actually going through this book with my team. We're going through chapter by chapter. Right now we're on chapter 12, which was amazing. But essentially it breaks it down. It's really simple. It says, okay, instead of looking at a 2025 year, let's set those goals. That's great. Let's set the goals. But this is really about the 12 weeks. Like get your mindset and get rid of the year thing. It's just not a thing anymore. 12 weeks is literally your year. So what that does is it accelerates your mindset. And you say, oh my gosh, I got to get all my stuff done in 12 weeks.
Yep.
Then you put that down. I put it on a spreadsheet. I put exactly what it is. And the thing is you got to keep it simple. Got to keep it simple. Like if you make this complicated and overwhelming, then you're going to get discouraged. So probably I have 6 or 7 things on there.
Which are what? Are there some of these?
Yeah, there's a balance. So one is my income. Okay. A goal.
So make X.
Yep. Make X. Another one is, I have, daily scripture reading. Mm-hmm. I think it's 86 of them, that I got to do. I got family prayers, trying to hit those. And then I've got going on a trip with my wife. Mm-hmm. You know, that was one thing on 12 weeks. Trying to find like the balance of like, you know, increasing my relationship with God. Like, how do I do those things? Well, it's the smaller, you got to do the 2025s that are very general. And you just say, yes or no, did I hit it? You know, and some of those are like income's like, there's a number and it's there. But when it's like your relationship with somebody or with God or whatever,
it's
like
altruistic,
that, it's literally like yes or no. Was it good? Then you break it down to 12 weeks and you say, what are some specific things that I can do that's going to strengthen my relationship? And then I go to a week. And that week is critical. The week is literally, you break it down even farther. So instead of having 6 items on 12 weeks, I now have like 10 items that I got to hit on the week, right? And I have a scoring system. So it's my scoreboard, and it's just got percentages right next to them. And I get at 9 p.m. at night. Sometimes I fail at it, and at 8 in the morning, I'm filling out what I did yesterday. But they're just little markers. And then it just automatic computes the percentages. And what I do at the end of the week is I take those numbers and I move it over to the 12-week year.
And you're doing this on a spreadsheet?
Yeah, just do it on a spreadsheet. That's all I do.
But
and I just move it over, and then
it's so interesting how tough we are on ourselves, because I know another guy named Dave Allred, and he's similar in the way that he tracks his life and his lifestyle design.
Yeah.
And he says the same thing. It's like, I still don't even feel like I'm that good at this. But he's like
doing it on a spreadsheet.
He's doing it on a spreadsheet.
Percentages.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. It's so cool.
So I just manually push them over to the 12-week, and then you know, at the 2025. So I have zero focus right now on 2025. Zero focus. I've already assigned that, saying, okay, that's my long term, because that's, you know. But then I really focus on that 12-week, and I really dial in on the daily system.
Yeah.
So I got my week, but then I basically block, and everybody's done this, they block their time on the day to the minute of what you should be doing. That's what I do with these guys, is I take it down to the daily system. It's like you have your 12-week year, you have your weekly, and then you break it down to a daily system. So I get up at 6 a.m. in the morning. At 6:05 in the morning, from that 5-minute period, I do X. From 6:05 to 6:15, I get my self-development done. 6:15 to 7 o'clock, I get my workout. And you try to follow that 80% of the time. You don't try to hit 100. I mean, you can try to hit 100, but you're going to hit 80% of the time. Life happens. Things shift. You're not going to be in your environment every time.
Yeah.
And you got to be okay with that.
And you don't let it break your streak. You don't let it get you down.
No.
Yeah,
just keep going.
I've called that rigid flexibility. Right? Rigid flexibility. There's things I'm going to be rigid in, and that's these things that I need to do today. I'm going to be rigid in those.
Yeah.
But I also have to be flexible enough to know that, hey, some days my kids aren't going to feel perfect in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Some days things are going to happen in life. So I'm still rigid in the fact that I'm going to accomplish this thing today.
Yeah.
But I have to be a little bit flexible in life, knowing that, hey, my family's important and things happen in life that are important to also take care of, but it doesn't let me off the hook to do that thing that day.
Exactly. Yeah. And it comes down to just identifying, like this book talks about identifying three critical items. That's it. Like, identify those in the day. You get your little things done and stuff, but on your productive hours, you get those 3 critical items done.
Yeah.
That's it.
Concept of eating the big frog first, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the book talks about a 12-week year. I think so many times we've talked about 90-day cycles. Yeah. You know, running it's the same exact thing, right? It's 12 weeks is 90 days. And I think this is such an important thing for people to realize, because a lot of times what happens at the beginning of the year, in fact, we just did a podcast about this. People at the beginning of the year, they try to change all of this stuff about their life, and they overwhelm themselves, and then they end up getting really not a whole lot done.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you talk about even the week, because if you go to the gym on a Monday, it's packed. But you go to the gym on a Saturday, it's like, it's easy to get in. You can always get a squat rack on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how at the beginning of the week there's more people there. At the end of the week there's less people there, where really if people are running a schedule and had these habits and disciplines that were consistent, it theoretically should be just as busy on Monday as it is on Friday or Saturday, right?
Yep.
But it's not, just like it's not in sales. But if you can learn to separate yourself and be consistent and eat the big frog first, or do these important daily tasks, which I think, we were just talking before with Adam, one of those things are physical fitness, right? Being in good shape. You just talked about working out every morning.
Yep.
And so if that's one of those things for you, just like making money or your career should be one, and then your family, whatever that may be, if you stay consistent on these things, and you have certain tasks that you achieve daily, if you take care of today, then tomorrow you can do that again, and that takes care of the week, takes care of the month, takes care of the 90 days, and then you can reward yourself for doing a good job, right?
Yep.
Is that the whole philosophy of this trip you're going to take your wife on?
Yep.
Is it once every 90 days? Is that how you've done it?
I'd love to.
Yeah. So, because I would like to talk about this too, because when there's a price being paid, everybody pays a price, right? If you have a family.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a wife, you have kids, and if you're showing up early and you're staying late, then your wife's paying a price too, right? Your kids are paying a price too.
Yep.
So just as important as there is this reward for yourself, there also should be a reward for your family that's also paying a price, right?
Yeah, and I think too is, and I fail at this all the time. I'm not perfect at this, but like you actually sprint with intent. Mm-hmm. So everything that you do, and I was talking to the guys about this. I said, look, my 9-year-old can come to me and he just loves to blab, like just tell you his whole day, and then half the stuff he tells you doesn't even make any sense. And so you've drowned out your whole day talking to people all day long, managing, training, leadership, all that stuff, and then you're out in the field and you're just exhausted. And then this 9-year-old comes to you and he just wants to daddy time. I just want to blow up for 30 minutes if I didn't stop him, right? And the thing is I failed at it so many times when I just, I maybe listen to 5% of what he's saying, and then but I'm listening. He thinks I'm listening, but I'm not listening, right? And I think that's an important thing where it's like, if I shifted my mindset to say, if I just zoned in on my son right now for 5 minutes, literally just sprint and focus on him and get 5 minutes out of him instead of just not listening for 30 minutes. And then he feels that I actually listened to him with intent, then he's going to be okay with my next 25 minutes of doing something else.
But doesn't it also make you feel better about what you're going to do for those next 25 minutes?
Yes.
Isn't it interesting how that happens?
Yes. And every time I do that, and I fail at it all the time, and I even do it with my wife all the time, like, I'm so zoned into my work day, and she says something and I don't listen. And then I come home, and then she knew I didn't listen. And then you're now like spending an hour trying to fix that problem. Whereas you could, just have a better sprint with focus. And I think that's what comes to work too, is when you get out in the area, you sprint with focus, and then literally from there, like, take a break.
Isn't that the definition of discipline, right? My definition of discipline has always been do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, whether you feel like it or not.
Yeah.
Right? And so whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with your kids, whether it's on the doors, whatever it is, do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, whether you feel like it or not. And then ultimately you end up feeling better because you did the thing that you didn't feel like doing.
Yeah. And I think the biggest challenge is saying yes and no to people. Because there are opportunities where you want to be nice, not kind. You want to be nice to people all around you, and they want to come talk to you, and they want to say, why are you doing this and why are you successful at that? And the challenge is that just eats away what you just put together, your schedule, your time.
Let's talk about this because, I think actually there are some people listening to this who have started to become leaders. They've started leading a team.
Yep.
They've started developing some stuff. And I actually think what makes most people go from good to great in leadership isn't their skills, and a lot of times it may not even be their thinking or their values or their character, but who they choose to pour time into. Right? I think most leaders that start to break into this good, they start to have good values. That's why people follow them. They start to have some good results. That's why people follow them. So they start to get a little group together. And then who they choose to spend their time with becomes the difference of them staying, somewhat maybe a little bit of growth or exploding and having astronomical success. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So what is your process? How do you know who to spend time with? How do you know who do I invest my time and effort and energy into? Like with your kids, it's easy. With your wife, it's easy. It's your family. But when it comes to a business and when it comes to a team, and you look at these people and you genuinely care about this person in front of you, but you know that they're going to ask you all these questions, and they're not going to do anything with it. I call them assholes, right? They ask a lot. They don't do anything with it, right? So how do I know who to spend my time with so that I'm not wasting my time, but I still am not dismissive either?
Yeah, I think it comes down to you only have so much time in the day, right? So if you assign a block of day for these types of opportunities, it's literally like if they show up. That's like number one. Do they literally show up? And if they're like, they don't show up, I'm not going to put any time into them. I can't waste my time. It's a money suck for me. It's a time suck for me, So number one, do they show up? So I think for leadership, like you got to block your time, because you could spend 3 hours with a person and try to train them that you allocated maybe an hour of your time, and then you just went off. And now you're not productive because you end the day like, yeah, this guy might work or might not work out, but then you didn't make any income for yourself. You got to balance that out as well. Yeah. But essentially, I'm just saying, number one, they got to show up.
Yeah.
And I've got some guys right now
agree.
in the office that show up. They just show up. I say, here's my block of time, guys. I'm available. Mm-hmm. It's like that Spencer Wilson analogy. If he gave me that opportunity to just show up in the office, I didn't have that opportunity. I just showed up and then got his DVD. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I got to be in his car for 30 days and knock with him 3 times. Mm-hmm. So I'm telling these guys, hey, guys, every freaking morning I'm here at 8 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. Just here's a block of time. And so showing up is a big thing.
That's why you do it, because you never know who's going to be the next Cory Gilbert. And they got a little bit of your time, and they were coachable, and they start to download this stuff and apply it. And they've got the desire, and they're starting to take different actions in their life, and it could change everything.
Yeah.
Because I think before we finish here, we really need to talk about not only how do you make $1 million, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, how do you continue to do that and stay fired up about it and continue to have that money coming in without having to start over and do the same thing over again?
Which is developing people, right?
Yes.
Exactly the direction I was going.
Yep. I think.
And you can't get fatigued by it, because some people are going to show everything, like they're going to keep showing up, and then all of a sudden they'll quit.
Yep.
And then you can't let it fatigue you. Like, you can't let that traumatize you with another opportunity with a great person.
So the reason I think people get fatigued by that is because they're doing it for an inauthentic reason or a selfish reason, right? It's like, I'm showing up so I can get something out of somebody. So then if they don't show up, I'm frustrated, so then I stop, right? Versus if you're showing up because, hey, this is the right thing to do. I know I have some skills and some talent and some effort that I can pour into those that have a desire to show up, and that's where you find passion and you love sharing that stuff, and you're doing it for that reason. And I think it's important, because I was actually going to ask you this question, Cory, because it's perfect. A lot of times people will say, hey, I'm going to be at the office every morning at 8. No one shows, so they stop doing it, which means really the people who didn't show dictated your actions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where if you show up every morning, you say, hey, I'm going to be here regardless of who shows, you show up. Now you're in control of your actions, and you're doing the influencing, right? And then sometimes people will show up every morning, and then the people that didn't show, they'll start calling and saying, hey, how come you didn't show? Which is a form of recognition. Mm-hmm. So now you're recognizing people that didn't show up. So what do they want more of? Recognition. Everybody wants recognized, right?
Yep.
But if you're only pouring your time and effort and energy into the people that do show, then the people that aren't showing know, hey, the only way I'm getting Cory's time is if I show up tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Mm-hmm. And then you start only pouring your time into these people that you know are motivated at least enough to show up, right?
Yep. And I think also it's giving them a task, or also seeing what shots they're taking on at home, right? Mm-hmm. Because you could tell you're blue in the face, be telling them this is the recipe of success. Here it is at 8 o'clock every morning. But then if you find out that they literally did nothing, then we just waste our time, right? It's just a big waste of time. It's a cycle that it's just a non-improvement. So I think it's the guys that I'm looking, or the gals that I'm looking for, are the ones that show up, and number 2, they put their personal time into it. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I would say that's the difference between a teacher and a coach.
And they're willing to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They're willing to get uncomfortable. Yeah. And I actually like throwing, like in this JKR Windows atmosphere, I like taking a newbie and just saying, okay, you did your homework at home. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to put you 3 hours. We're going to assign you area. I'm going to give you 3 hours all on your own. I'm not going to knock with you first. Mm-hmm. Why do I do that? Because I want you to be way uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And because then the next hour
you get to see who's serious.
Yes, and you get to see who's serious, and then also they're hungry. So you go out with them like after those 3 hours, and you knock with them for an hour. They're just like, oh my gosh, like this was a little bit harder than I thought, And then they get to see but yeah, it's just, I love that recipe.
Yeah, it's a special combination of things, and as you evolve as a leader, you start to get better at this, because there's there's like a dynamic that you need to create because they don't come equipped with it a lot of the times. Like a lot of these guys are brand new. I was walking in that room today and Obi was talking to a couple guys that are like deer in the headlights. And they're like, oh boy, I'm not sure if this guy's going to make it. He was like taking a fire hose to the face. But sometimes he's catching these little things, and Obi's got enough experience that he's trying to plant these seeds with these guys. And then he's going to watch them go out and see who takes it seriously. And one of the things he's watching for, and I know you are too, is what you choose to do with your free time. You can't just show up here during a certain amount of time when I'm here with you and expect magic to happen. There's all of these other times during your day that you need to choose what to do with. And if you're just doing a bunch of stuff that's not going to help you improve and master your craft and get better for next week to help you improve as a leader and a coach and a mentor also, I mean, a lot of these guys just spin their wheels, and they got all this talent coming out of their freaking ears. But you're so confused about why they cannot level up, and that's the difference. Like if you can't choose what to do with your free time better, you're going to be here a year from now and 2 years from now, and you may be able to sell, but you're never going to develop.
Yeah, and I love that the word manage is not in leadership. Does that make sense? Like leadership.
Oh, we almost never use it.
That's the challenge.
It's a cuss word in leadership.
Yeah, we fall in. It's a trap because we want so badly these people, and we hold their hand, and then they just feed off of you, and they just and then they just suck all your time, and we want to lead instead of manage.
Yeah, I think you only need to manage uninspired people. And if somebody is
I'll let somebody else in the group do that.
Get experience with them.
Because you're trying to inspire people.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they've been in these environments and they haven't quite been influenced by a culture like this yet. And they're trying to grasp it. And sometimes we blow them out before they ever get there. But we're trying to create an environment where people can come in and get inspired. And we use some of these management and a little bit of babysitting and a little bit of pushing a wet noodle. Because sometimes it works, and sometimes they've grasped onto it, and they got this new burst of energy, and they're like, wow, I like this. I like being led.
Yeah, I also think what happens a lot of times in those situations is a situation arises in their personal life where something happens to them, and they go, okay, enough's enough. I'm sure it happened to you with this medical sales job you were talking about at some point. There was one day where you're like, you know what? Why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this?
Like, enough's enough. I'm going to go do my own thing. And a lot of times we have the opportunity to have an environment that doesn't write somebody off who may be uninspired. Just because they're uninspired doesn't mean they don't have the talent or can't do it, right? We also have people that are trying to learn leadership, and that's a good person to allow them to practice with, right, and get their skills up with. We also want to have an environment that provides enough value, enough encouragement, and enough tools that they can continue to show up to, and they feel like they're going to get better. I've always used the analogy of, like, if you're hungry, you go to the refrigerator. And if there's nothing in the refrigerator, you might go back once or twice or maybe even 3 times and just to check, is there anything in the refrigerator? I used to always do it when I was a teenager. My metabolism is going crazy. Go check. Yep, still no food. An hour later, still no food. And then eventually you stop, right? And leadership is very similar, where people are going to come back over and over and over. They might not have got anything the first time or the second time or the third time. And if there's nothing in there, they go to someone else. But if you always have value to provide to them, if you always have something you can add to their life, something you can continue to encourage them, and a tool that they can use in any part of their life, they're going to keep coming back. And we just want them coming back long enough until a situation happens in their life where they go, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to do this. And then that's how you find the Cory Gilberts, Jefferson Rogers. That's how you find leaders who say enough's enough. I know it happened with you too one day, It's a common story. Different situations, but a common circumstance that causes leaders to say, all right, enough's enough. I'm gonna make this happen because there's a price to pay, right?
Yeah.
So we want to be that catalyst for people, man.
Yeah.
Because they're here long enough to be exposed to something, to feel inspired, to have leaders around them that are going to help build belief in them that they may not ever have had the chance to tap into had they not been exposed to JKR Windows. So I'm proud to be working with you, Cory.
Yeah.
You're a stud. We're going to do some big things together over the next couple of years. We're just starting to scratch the surface.
When we were talking about the situation that you had happen with your former business and you know, and then all the stuff we've talked about today, it made me think about this quote by Winston Churchill. It's funny, Jefferson always gives me a hard time. I always got a quote, right? Because they mean something to me, and I remember them. And it says, there comes a certain moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born, that he believed that this moment when a person is uniquely qualified to fulfill their mission and find greatness. And so I think it's important for, you know, like everything that happened in your life, like, dude, it made you uniquely qualified to come here, be here at this moment, and we get the opportunity to work with you and find a dude who's uniquely qualified and say, man, we can go achieve something great together. And it takes that, right?
Yep.
So hopefully that makes the sting a little bit less, you know.
Well, and I think also it's just, you know, the reality is perspective as well. Because when I look at, you know, I was in Guatemala for 2 years, and I saw that. I saw their lives and what opportunities they had in front of them, and, you know, little kids running around naked, bloated stomachs, you know. And you think, you know, what happened to me just now was, you know, it's just, it's nothing. Yeah. It's really nothing. Like, we are blessed. We have opportunities all around us that we can actually take advantage of. And it's just, you know, and I tell my guys this, I'm like, look, you can get in a Cessna plane, and that Cessna plane will fit so many people on it, and it's going to get you to a city. You can get in a jet that's going to fit 12 people, and it's going to get you to different states. You can get in a jumbo jet, you know what I mean? So you have the decision of, that's the USA, right? We have the full opportunity of getting in whatever plane we want to get in and hit whatever destination we have. And that's just the beauty of this is there's so many people in third world countries that just don't have those vehicles, right? And so it's all perspective. Yep. And when you have gratitude kick in and you're just like, okay, the crap I'm dealing with right now is just nothing compared to what somebody else is dealing with. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm going to take this to the next level.
Yep.
Love that.
You're a stud, dude.
As we wrap up here, I think the message for our listeners is that it's possible. Right. $1 million blueprint is out there for the taking. But if you don't have a plan, you can pretty much plan to fail. We all have established that. And you got to make sure you got the right vehicle. Because we just, you know, the kid you were out there talking to earlier, he's done, was it pest control?
Pest control, yeah.
And I know that it's possible, but can you persevere long enough selling bug juice to go make $1 million? Or can you get tapped into an opportunity that fires you up, that excites you, where you're offering real value, that customers get excited about, where you can speed up the timeline? And I think that's what we've all seen in Windows, and what a lot of people are seeing around the U.S. right now with replacement Windows, is this market is blowing up. It's been a sleeper for a long time, not anymore.
Right.
It's blowing up. And as all of these other industries are starting to get a little bit saturated, some of them are just getting crushed because of a lot of bad decisions, like solar, there's an even brighter light being shined on the opportunity inside of replacement Windows.
Yep.
Where it's the vehicle that in a very short period of time, you've been with us for a very short period of time and already on track to make 7 figures. And, I mean, we haven't even made those adjustments that even make it even better with our comp plan yet. And you're still on track for that.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. Write your goals down. Reverse engineer what it's going to take. Check out this book. I hadn't read this one yet, but I got it on the list now, The 12-Week Year. Who's the author on that one?
Brian Morin.
Brian Morin.
Yeah.
The 12-Week Year. Time to take it to the next level, people. The next 12 weeks could shape the rest of your life. We call them 90-day sprints. Cory has got his next 12 weeks mapped out. But you go hard for the next 12 weeks, and you get serious with some of these small little disciplines that create success, like personal development, writing your goals, waking up and making more of your day. There's just a couple of really simple things. You go 12 weeks hard on those things, boom, changes your whole life.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another episode of Just Real Quick. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to the podcast. Share this thing with somebody who you think needs to hear a message like this. And we'll see you next time.